Well, this trial is the last stop before the U.S. Food and Drug Administration decides whether it can go on the market. For his views on a vaccine and the COVID-19 response of this government, we're joined now by public health advocate Dr. Tony Leachon. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. We heard Senator Zubiri earlier saying that there are so many other countries who have a vaccine in phase 3 trials. Why does the president seem to focus on a Chinese vaccine?
Well, Rico, I don't know where the president is coming from. Perhaps the president is not fully briefed as to the timelines of vaccine development. Just for disclosure, Rico, I used to work with Pfizer. I worked there from 1993 to 2011 and had significant experience on launching new products and, of course, vaccine development. Pfizer kick off today a phase 3 trial, 30,000 patients, and they will going to enroll patients here for 2 months from August to September. And then the study will go on for 4 to 6 months, and then the timeline will be from October to December. And then they will apply this after the phase 3. You're going to find out the efficacy and safety of the studies. This usually would be about 30,000 patients.
What about the efficacy of Chinese vaccines, Dr. Leachon?
Well, the Chinese regulatory agency has not been considered a reference country. By standards, when we say reference countries, these are countries, let's say, the European market, the USA FDA, the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Authority of Australia, Canada. We call these reference countries. Reference countries are countries in which we order products and then import that to the Philippines. And usually the timeline from the FDA approval is about 3 to 6 months. So if we're projecting to say facilitated FDA approval sometime in January, then the earliest that we can this particular vaccine will reach our shore will be first quarter, sometime March or March, May.
So,
or
Dr.
second
Leachon,
quarter of 2021.
As a former COVID-19 task force advisor, from your knowledge, has the government already spoken to many of the big drug manufacturers or countries that are developing these vaccines to start reserving these vaccines when they are officially approved?
No, not yet at this point in time. The usual scenario for this case is that I think the president should actually meet with the ASEAN leaders and then come up with a proposal, perhaps to the United Nations. And usually in America, you have to partner with a philanthropist like Bill Gates and other big companies. So the strategy here is that the IATF should meet with the business sector and then come up with a meeting to present to the ASEAN leaders and then the United Nations, so that we'll be able to get a share of the vaccine. You know that this particular vaccine is, of course, a global need. And as you can see, perhaps the G8 countries will try to get a lion's share of this particular vaccine. And we need to move fast right now, considering it's in the phase 3 trial.
Do you think the president is referring to China because he has a close relationship with Xi Jinping and the Chinese government, and we could be prioritized when the vaccine from China gets final approval and passes the phase 3 trials?
Yeah, I think that's the strategy of the president, and of course the president of China would promise, let's say, September. But as a former medical and regulatory affairs director of an American company, you need to evaluate first the efficacy and safety of the vaccine, considering the track record of China in terms of manufacturing of quality products. And the usual vaccines would emanate from the European market, of course, the North America, and of course, Japan, and of course, Canada. So the president should have multiple options, not only China, but he has to look at the bigger markets. And he has to discuss this, of course, with the pharmaceutical industry and the business sector, so that you can actually have a consolidation of all the efforts going into the vaccine development and procurement.
On that note, we would like to thank you for your insights on a potential vaccine for the Philippines and for the Filipino people to get our economy going and for us to be safe from this ongoing pandemic. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Tony Leachon.
Thank you very much, Rico. Thank you.
And